So guys, I've decided to review a classic Grand Prix. And when you're thinking back to all your classic Grand Prix that you've ever seen, there's so many to choose from. A lot of classic close finishes and, last lap battles and, where do we go? Today, I'm going to tell you the story of the first ever flag to flag race. The flag to flag rules had been there the whole season before this race. And there was a white flag and rain almost more than a year earlier in Portugal in 2005. But nobody ever swapped bikes that day. Alex Barros won that Grand Prix. It was a very good Grand Prix as well. Could have done that one. But we got all the way through that season and almost all the way through another season without a bike swap. Until we got to Phillip Island in 2006.
The rider's favourite circuit. When the weather's dry, I think it's most people's favourite circuit.
Now, 2006 was a fascinating season. And it was because it was the first time ever since Rossi had ever got there that he really looked like he might not go on and win a world championship. Nicky Hayden had the championship lead by 22 points, but it wasn't over Valentino Rossi. Dani Pedrosa, the rookie, in his rookie season for Repsol Honda, was 22 points back in second, and a further 4 points back from that was Valentino Rossi. Nicky Hayden put it on pole. Perfect situation for him. He was on pole, Rossi was in third, and Pedrosa was the one with work to do down in 10th. Rossi was nearly unbeatable at Phillip Island from 2001 when he won there to win the World Championship. You couldn't touch him at Phillip Island. Now, as we set off on our warm-up lap and excitement starts to build around the circuit, we can feel like we're going to see a classic here. The way it's set up with the championship battle and where the rider's positioned, and Shinya Nakano just throwing his nose in there. Now, as the riders come around to finish that warm-up lap, they decided there was going to be a little bit too wet for them, so they all start waving their arms around until the race director declares this a wet race, which wasn't a waste of time at all because they all got to switch onto their Okay, no, they all started on slicks anyway. So after another warm-up lap, we eventually got on our way. So the race gets underway with Shinya Nakano doing his best Mick Doohan impression, and then as we come around turn 3 and head into turn 4 where there are no rules and the racing lines don't matter, Shinya Nakano has a strong lead from Colin Edwards, and Shinya wasn't done there. I mean, look at the little ninja go. So as we completed the first lap, the championship situation was looking very interesting. With Dani Pedrosa getting an unreal start, he's up into 5th. But the most important thing was that he'd left Valentino Rossi down in 10th and Nicky Hayden outside the points in 16th. All of a sudden, this is tasty. So as we fast forward now to lap 5, Valentino Rossi produces one of the greatest laps of the Phillip Island circuit that I think we've ever seen. He crosses the line in 8th and proceeds to go past Hopkins and Roberts at turn 1, Colin Edwards at turn 4, Pedrosa on the change of direction between 8 and 9, and rides around the outside of Melandri at 11 and 12 to cross the line at the end of the lap in 3rd. And he wasn't done, as he went on to go past Gibernau into 2nd on the following lap. It started to properly rain at this point. And this is when the realisation set in that we were getting something that was pretty much designed for Phillip Island, the flag-to-flag race. James Ellison was our first offering to the gods at the circuit. A feel of excitement was going around. We were being a part of history here. At least that's what we would have thought if our first thought wasn't, shit, I'm about to catch hypothermia. And oh my goodness, look at some of these bike changes. I mean, we're a long way from the Marquez bike swap here. I mean, Cardoso's was particularly pathetic. But hey, look, these boys are trying their best here. So on lap 8 now, and with the rain really starting to fall, and the need for a bike swap becoming painfully obvious to everybody at the circuit and everybody watching from home, the slick surface claimed its first casualty, Colin Edwards, who was looking a little worse for wear. Now, poor old Shinya Nakano, who's clearing off at the front, is about to make a decision that he's going to regret for a long time. Oh, Shinya. So with Shinya Nakano, the only rider in the field at this point to not swap bikes, and we had a couple of guys from lower in the order come in a lap earlier than everybody else, there's a big reshuffle on the cards here. And when all the chips had fallen, and Shinya Nakano had been in and come out a lap late from his bike swap, the order looked like this. We had Gibernau from Nakano, Czech had found himself in 3rd, from Chris Vermeulen and Casey Stoner. We find our championship hopefuls, Valentino Rossi and Nicky Hayden, one behind the other, 8th and 9th respectively. And Dani Pedrosa, that good start's gone to waste, he's down in 13th. So Shinya had lost the lead and he was about to lose more than that, as wet weather specialist and all-round bloody legend Chris Vermeulen had come out of nowhere to ride past him into 2nd, causing the entirety of Australia to give it one of these. And to be honest, at this point, I couldn't see him not winning this race. Now, once we had everyone out of the pits for about a lap or so, it settled down for a bit, but that didn't really last long, because if we skip forward a few laps, something very important happens. Championship leader, Nicky Hayden, pulls out from behind Valentino Rossi as they're coming down the straight and goes past him on the run down into turn 1. Now, from a day that could have seen Hayden's championship lead go flying out the window without the bike swaps and without the rain actually falling properly when he was down in 16th position, had now turned into what was a potential extension of that lead. And he did all to conditions that, it has to be said, Nicky Hayden was not much of a wet weather rider at the time. And you know what? It looks like Rossi isn't going to have an answer for it. Oh, no, wait. Okay, yeah, he's got him back. And where the bloody hell has he come from? Now, to be honest, I didn't mention Marco Melandri at all till this point for a reason. If I remember correctly, this was similar to my reaction on the day, where he'd just been floating around, 5th, 6th, whatever, doing his thing, hadn't noticed much of him, and then all of a sudden, everything just clicked for him, and he just went bang. Aussie hearts sunk as he easily rounded up Chris Vermeulen and set off after race leader Sete Gibernau. And it didn't take long. By lap 16, Marco Melandri is your race leader, never to be seen or heard from again. The following lap, Chris Vermeulen slides up the inside of Sete Gibernau into 2nd place at the old MG corner. And then from this point on in the race, your attention turns to this group of lads right here. Casey Stoner, Shinya Nakano, Valentino Rossi. Oh, checkers down. He used to do that a lot. Shinya Nakano, Casey Stoner, Valentino Rossi, Nicky Hayden, and Loris Capirossi. And this is where Rossi started to turn the screws a little bit on Nicky Hayden. He goes to the front of the group, past Stoner into turn 4, and then past Shinya Nakano into turn 10. The rider that Rossi was at this stage in his career, who knows what he can do from here. There's not long to go, but if anyone can do it, it was Valentino Rossi. So Nicky Hayden gets up the inside of Shinya Nakano. He knows he has to go with Rossi at this point. And while that's happening, your 2nd place in the championship rider, Danny Pedrosa, well, his day just couldn't get any worse. He's about to get lapped by Marco Melandri. Yep, that's you getting lapped there, Danny. So on the back end of the circuit now, Nicky Hayden has got past Casey Stoner, and he now sets off after Valentino Rossi. And this championship race is hotting up. And as you can see there, minimal damage for Nicky Hayden if he just stays there. Now, as we move ahead to the last lap, Valentino Rossi and Nicky Hayden can smell it at this point. As they come around over Lukey Heights, they're within striking distance of a podium. They drop down into turn 10. Hayden could be a bit too far away, but Rossi is going to have to do it through the long left-handers. They tip it right, they tip it left, Rossi's lining him up. The move's happening. If it's happening, it's happening now. It's the last lap, but it's at this point that we cut away for one of the most iconic Phillip Island moments, for me anyway, of all time. It's the Marco Melandri one-handed power slide through turn 12 to win the race. And just look at him, and he's just nodding his head. He knows that's going to look cool. That's a GIF. That's a GIF for sure. GIFs don't exist yet, but it is one. Now the only question remains is, as we cut back to the battle for 3rd place, who's come out of that corner on the podium? Vermeulen's still 2nd, and Rossi's up the inside. He's done it. You could never write Rossi off. And the fact here that he put a bike between him and Hayden was important. That's right, Marco. Get your burnouts out of the way, and it's time for the customary Phillip Island track invasion.
Oh no, there's people invading the track.
Now this race, I loved. I was lucky enough to be there on the day. It was a really great event, and with the championship the way it was, I found this one, when I looked back, to be particularly fascinating. The defining moment of this title race that season ended up being in Valencia, when Rossi crashed and basically handed the title to Nicky Hayden. But what had happened in this race, I think, set Hayden up to be able to go and win the championship. The fact that he could have been finishing this race outside the top 10, to then come back and only lose maybe like 5 points to Rossi. Rossi, I think, went on to win in, I think it was Japan after this, and then he got 2nd in Estoril, and he really did turn the screws. I think he wins the championship if Hayden doesn't recover in this race, because he wasn't great in the run into the end of the season, Nicky Hayden. Yeah, fascinating race, fascinating championship that season. Brilliant ride. One of the best Phillip Island rides I've ever seen by Marco Melandri. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of the first ever flag to flag race. Thanks for joining me. We're going to look to do a few more retro reviews. I had a lot of fun looking back and watching the old Grand Prix and just seeing all my old favourite riders and stuff like that. So I'm going to absolutely be doing this again. Let me know which Grand Prix you'd like to see me do, because it's hard to pick one because there's so many great ones. Thanks again if you watched all the way through to the end of the video. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys on the next one.